Science once fiercely condemned beavers, insisting that their dams would create stagnant bathtubs and cook every living creature under the sun. For 150 years, humans personally destroyed millions of natural dams, triggering a drought disaster that depleted millions of hectares of land. Trapped and desperate, researchers decided to bring 5 beavers back into a desert streambed that had completely dried out. And infrared thermal camera measurements recorded a truth that shocked the global hydrology world. Using only branches and mud, these 5 rodents activated a gigantic natural machine hidden beneath dozens of meters of soil. They silently unlocked an ecological mystery, turning a deadly desert strip into a permanent oasis in a way that billion-dollar science still cannot replicate. Before the 19th century, the North American continent was a gigantic sponge. More than 400 million beavers lived along every capillary of the river systems. They built billions of natural dams, creating a connected wetland network, stopping mountain snowmelt, holding water on the plains, and nourishing life. Then the disaster called humans appeared. The fur trade exploded, bringing industrial-scale overexploitation. By the early 20th century, from 400 million individuals, the beaver population had declined by 99%, with fewer than 100,000 individuals remaining in remote, far northern regions. The disappearance of beavers triggered a chain reaction that severely degraded the entire ecosystem. Without beaver dams, winter snowmelt rushed down the mountainsides like flash floods. Water drained straight into the ocean in only a few weeks. Streams eroded deeply into steep ravines. Nearly 64 million acres of wetlands, equivalent to the area of the entire United Kingdom, were completely erased from the map. The American West entered the worst megadrought era in 1,200 years. But the human response made the situation even worse. Hundreds of billions of dollars were poured into concreting nature. Engineers built gigantic steel dams, dug canals, and installed pipelines in an attempt to control water. The result? A hydrological disaster. Concrete dams blocked fish migration, changed stream temperature, and evaporated millions of gallons of water under the sun. By August, the peak of summer, semi-arid lands ran completely dry. Ranchers who once destructively destroyed beaver dams, such as John Griggs in Nevada, now had to face the consequences as they watched their landscape turn into a dry wasteland. But nature always has a self-healing mechanism, if we give the job to the right workers. A bold intervention campaign began. In 2015, in Idaho, ranch owner Jay Wild stood on the edge of bankruptcy because Birch Creek had dried up. Every traditional engineering effort had failed. With no way out, he turned to Utah State University. Their proposal initially seemed unrealistic: bring beavers back to the desert. The problem was that the streambed had eroded too deeply and had no vegetation cover at all. If beavers were released at that moment, they would be attacked by predators or exhausted from lack of water before they could build anything. Humans had to help create the initial stepping stone. The research team began building 19 structures called BDAS. By driving wooden posts into the streambed, weaving surplus willow branches, and filling them with mud, they created primitive artificial dams. The cost for 1 mile of BDA stream was less than $4,000, compared with $50,000 if excavators and concrete dam engineering were used. When the first small pools of water were held back by the BDA dams, 5 wild beavers were released into the Birch Creek streambed. Expectations were extremely low. But the survival instinct shaped through millions of years of evolution in this animal awakened. On the very first night, the 5 beavers completely took over the artificial dams. They realized the human structures were too loose. With teeth capable of cutting through a branch 15 centimeters in diameter in less than 5 minutes, they cut down willow branches, dove to the bottom to collect mud, and reinforced all 19 dams, turning them into perfect water-blocking fortresses. Only 1 year after the arrival of these 5 natural engineers, Birch Creek held water 2 months longer than any historical record ever documented in the area. The most astonishing part did not stop there. Surface water was only the visible tip of the iceberg. The truth about the power of beavers lay hidden dozens of meters underground, a secret that took scientists 100 years to decode. For decades, biologists fiercely opposed bringing beavers back. They believed in a seriously mistaken hypothesis. Beaver ponds are stagnant bathtubs. They argued that when water is blocked by dams, it is exposed to sunlight, gradually heats up, and becomes dangerous for temperature-sensitive fish such as Lahontan cutthroat trout. They were completely wrong. Modern infrared thermal scanning technology exposed a beautiful physical phenomenon called the hyporheic interface. When beavers build dams, the weight of the blocked water column creates enormous pressure, forcing that water to seep deep into underground aquifers. The ground around the dam becomes a gigantic sponge, recharging with water through winter and spring. At the peak of the dry summer, when surface water evaporates, this underground sponge begins releasing cold water from below the ground back up into the stream. Data from the Bridge Creek project in 2017 proves this. While surface water in areas without beavers heated up to 25 degrees Celsius, a temperature that immediately eliminates trout right beneath. Beaver dams, upwelling groundwater kept temperatures stable and cooler by 4 to 5 degrees Celsius. A 5 degrees Celsius difference is the absolute boundary between life and disappearance. Beavers do not only store water, they design gigantic air conditioning machines for the ecosystem. Thanks to the first 5 beavers, groundwater at Birch Creek rose, providing moisture for the root systems of plants across the surrounding area. Willows exploded in growth, bringing insects with them. Insects attracted birds. Deep and cold water became a perfect shelter that saved the endangered trout. An entire ecosystem restarted from zero. Saving one dried stream was already a miracle, but what forced the United States government to change its entire rulebook on forest management was the fact that this small animal managed to stop one of nature's most destructive forces. Climate change is turning forests into fires waiting to happen. Mega wildfires devastate millions of acres, melt metal, and no artificial barrier can stop them. But in 2021, during the bootleg mega wildfire that devastated more than 400,000 acres in Oregon, satellite images recorded an unreal phenomenon. In the middle of an ocean of gray ash, bare and ruined, gigantic intact ecological oases appeared. Those were the wetlands created by beavers. Dr. Emily Fairfax, a fire ecologist, collected data and proved the unmatched power of beaver dams. Thanks to the dense canal network and the underground sponge saturated with water, vegetation around beaver dams contains moisture levels so high that it cannot catch fire. Beaver ponds act as gigantic natural fire breaks. While thousands of firefighters faced danger and the government spent tens of billions of dollars fighting fires, this rodent force created zones of absolute safety. Wildlife from deer and bears to birds fled into these beaver ponds to survive the sea of flames. More than that, beaver wetlands are also gigantic biological carbon storage machines, locking tons of greenhouse gases beneath the mud and directly slowing global warming. A very practical economic equation emerges. Humans spend billions of dollars every year fighting drought and wildfire, while one beaver working 24/7, requiring no salary, operating continuously, and demanding no exhausting maintenance can solve both problems at zero cost. The aftermath of wildfire is the most expensive silent danger. And once again, beavers step forward to solve the consequences for humans. Beaver intervention actually had a shocking historical precedent. A campaign that sounds exactly like the script of a Hollywood action movie. In 1948, the Idaho Department of Fish and Game faced a complex problem. They realized that headwater streams were severely degrading, but the mountainous terrain was so rugged that trucks and pack horses could not reach it. Elmo Heder, a conservation officer, came up with a bold idea: drop beavers from the sky. He gathered surplus silk parachutes from World War II and designed special wooden boxes that could open automatically upon hitting the ground. A male beaver named Geronimo was chosen as the test pilot. He was dropped and retrieved successfully countless times to test the safety of the system. In the autumn of 1948, 76 wild beavers were loaded onto a twin-engine aircraft and parachuted into the Chamberlain Basin wilderness. All 76 individuals survived, immediately began building dams, and successfully established new populations, saving the entire ecosystem of the area. This shocking campaign proved that humans were willing to use the most extreme measures to bring beavers to places machines could not reach. This ecological revolution is no longer an exclusive story of North America. The wave of ecosystem reversal is spreading and sweeping across the old continent of Europe. However, the ecological challenge in Europe takes a completely opposite form. While the American West needs beavers to fight severe drought, European countries such as the United Kingdom are facing serious flooding disasters caused by abnormal rainfall from winter superstorms. The Eurasian beaver here was also hunted to near extinction by the early 20th century. Instead of continuing to spend hundreds of millions of pounds every year building inefficient concrete flood walls, the River Otter project in Devon made a gamble, releasing beaver families back into the wild after 400 years of absence. Hydrologists closely monitored the changes in stream flow. The data stunned the entire British academic world. A system of 13 small dams, built by beavers in the headwater area, reduced peak flood flow pouring toward downstream towns by up to 30%. The dams held floodwater on lowlands and nameless meadows, released it slowly, and protected thousands of homes from the risk of being swept away. An astonishing truth was confirmed: humanity's gigantic concrete projects had been outperformed by simple ecological structures created by beavers. Returning to the story of releasing the first 5 beavers in the American West, that intervention triggered an explosive chain reaction across the entire West. At Susie Creek in Nevada, from a barren dry gravel bed in 1989, there now stretches more than 11 miles of gigantic wetland oasis. Even during the most recent historic 4-year drought, when nearby ranches had to be abandoned because not a drop of water remained, Susie Creek was still full. Migratory birds, mule deer, and countless animals gathered here, turning the area into a biodiversity reserve in the middle of the desert. This ecological reversal forced humanity to completely change its perception. The U.S. Bureau of Land Management and Wildlife agencies, from Colorado and Wyoming to Washington, are now racing to bring beavers back. Instead of removing beavers that build dams and flood urban streets, people carefully pack them and transport them by helicopter into depleted headwater forests. Ranch owners who once fiercely opposed this animal now actively sign petitions asking the state to bring beavers onto their land. 150 years of human engineering arrogance, concrete blocks, steel, and imposed control has revealed its inefficiency before the interwoven branches and mud of a 20-kilogram rodent. Water has not disappeared from the desert. It only passes through too quickly before being burned away by summer. We have spent centuries trying to dominate nature because it does not operate the way humans want. But the 5 beavers in Idaho and the great revival of desert streams have proven an absolute truth. The only way to repair an ecosystem is not to dominate it with technology, but to return space to the primitive ecological engineers that originally designed it. A concrete dam has a lifespan of 50 years and will eventually crack, but a beaver dam evolves, reinforces itself, and expands through thousands of generations, creating a sustainable ecosystem protection network. As the world faces unprecedented extreme temperature records, the failure of billion-dollar engineering projects is a profound scientific lesson. The greatest power does not lie in using steel and concrete structures to control nature. Taking one step back and returning space to wildlife so they can perform their biological function is the core solution that helps us reestablish the boundary of survival and protect humanity's future against the brutal impacts of climate change. Do you agree with this scientific perspective? Is abandoning mechanical intervention and restoring natural functions to wildlife the most effective solution for responding to the climate crisis? Share your opinion in the comments below. If you found this video valuable for ecological knowledge, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. We will continue decoding natural mysteries and updating the largest ecosystem restoration campaigns around the world. See you in the next video.